Charles McArthur Ghankay Taylor is a former Liberian politician who was the 22nd President of Liberia, serving from the 2nd of August 1997 until his resignation on the 11th of August 2003. Born in Arthington, Montserrado County, Liberia, Taylor earned a degree at Bentley College in the United States before returning to Liberia to work in the government of Samuel Doe. After being removed for embezzlement, he eventually arrived in Libya, where he was trained as a guerrilla fighter. He returned to Liberia in 1989 as the head of a Libyan-backed rebel group, the National Patriotic Front of Liberia, to overthrow the Doe regime, initiating the First Liberian Civil War. Following Doe's execution, Taylor gained control of a large portion of the country and became one of the most prominent warlords in Africa. Following a peace deal that ended the war, Taylor coerced the population into electing him president in the 1997 general election by threatening to resume the war otherwise. During his term of office, Taylor was accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity as a result of his involvement in the Sierra Leone Civil War. Domestically, opposition to his regime grew, culminating in the outbreak of the Second Liberian Civil War. By 2003, Taylor had lost control of much of the countryside and was formally indicted by the Special Court for Sierra Leone. That year, he resigned as a result of growing international pressure and went into exile in Nigeria. In 2006, the newly elected President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf formally requested his extradition. He was detained by UN authorities in Sierra Leone and then at the penitentiary institution Haglanden in The Hague, awaiting trial by the Special Court. He was found guilty in April 2012 of all 11 charges levied by the Special Court, including terror, murder and rape. In May 2012, Taylor was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Reading the sentencing statement, presiding Judge Richard Lussick said, "The accused has been found responsible for aiding and abetting as well as planning some of the most heinous and brutal crimes recorded in human history." Early life. Taylor was born in Arthington, a town near the capital of Monrovia, Liberia, on the 28th of January 1948, to Nelson and Bernice Taylor. He took the name Ghankay later on, possibly to please and gain favor with indigenous Liberians. His mother was a member of the guerilla ethnic group, part of the 95% of the people who are indigenous to Liberia. According to most reports, his father was an Americo-Liberian who worked as a teacher, sharecropper, lawyer and judge. In 1977, Taylor earned a degree at Bentley College in Waltham, Massachusetts, United States. Government, imprisonment and escape. Taylor supported the 12th of April 1980 coup led by Samuel Doe, which resulted in the murder of President William R. Talbot, Jr., and seizure of power by Doe. Taylor was appointed to the position of Director General of the General Services Agency, a position that left him in charge of purchasing for the Liberian government. He was sacked in May 1983 for embezzling an estimated $1 million and sending the funds to an American bank account. Taylor fled to the United States but was arrested on the 21st of May 1984 by 2 U.S. deputy marshals in Somerville, Massachusetts, on a warrant for extradition to face charges of embezzling $1 million of government funds while the GSA boss, citing a fear of assassination by Liberian agents. Taylor fought extradition from the safety of jail with the help of a legal team led by former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark. His lawyer's primary arguments before U.S. District Magistrate Robert J. DiGiacomo stated that his alleged acts of law-breaking in Liberia were political rather than criminal in nature and that the extradition treaty between the two republics had lapsed. In response, Assistant United States Attorney Richard G. Stearns argued that Liberia wished to charge Taylor with theft in office, rather than with political crimes, and that any international political decisions that could hold up the trial should be made only by the U.S. State Department. Stearns' arguments were reinforced by Liberian Justice Minister Jenkins Scott, who flew to the United States to testify at the proceedings. While awaiting the conclusion of the extradition hearing, Taylor was detained in the Plymouth County Correctional Facility. On the 15th of September 1985, Taylor and 4 other inmates escaped from the jail. 2 days later, the Boston Globe reported that they soared through a bar covering a window in a dormitory room, after which they lowered themselves 20 feet on knotted sheets and escaped into nearby woods by climbing a fence. Shortly thereafter, Taylor and 2 other escapees were met at nearby Jordan Hospital by Taylor's wife, Enid, and Taylor's sister-in-law, Lucia Holmes-Tower. They drove a getaway car to Staten Island in New York, where Taylor disappeared. All 4 of Taylor's fellow escapees, as well as Enid and Tower, were later apprehended. In July 2009, Taylor claimed at his trial that U.S. CIA agents had helped him escape from the maximum security prison in Boston in 1985. This was during his trial, by the UN-backed Special Court for Sierra Leone in The Hague. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency confirmed that Taylor first started working with U.S. intelligence in the 1980s but refused to give details of his role in U.S. actions, citing national security. Civil War. Taylor escaped undetected from the United States, and shortly thereafter it is believed that he reached Libya. He took part in guerrilla training under Muammar Gaddafi, becoming Gaddafi's protege. Eventually, he left Libya and traveled to the Ivory Coast, where he founded the National Patriotic Front of Liberia. In December 1989, Taylor launched a Gaddafi-funded armed uprising from the Ivory Coast into Liberia to overthrow the Doe regime, leading to the First Liberian Civil War. By 1990, his forces soon controlled most of the country. That same year, Prince Johnson, a senior commander of Taylor's NPFL, broke away and formed the Independent National Patriotic Front of Liberia. In September 1990, Johnson captured Monrovia, depriving Taylor of outright victory. Johnson and his forces captured and tortured Doe to death, resulting in a violent political fragmentation of the country. The Civil War turned into an ethnic conflict, with 7 factions among indigenous peoples and the Americo-Liberians fighting for control of Liberia's resources. According to the 2nd of June 1999 article in the Virginian Pilot, Taylor had extensive business dealings with American televangelist Pat Robertson during the Civil War. He gave Robertson the rights to mine for diamonds in Liberia, according to 2 Operation Blessing pilots who reported this incident in 1994 to the Commonwealth of Virginia for investigation. Robertson used his Operation Blessing planes to haul diamond mining equipment to his new mines in Liberia. At the same time, Robertson was telling his 700 Club viewers that the planes were sending relief supplies to the victims of the genocide in Rwanda. The subsequent investigation by the Commonwealth of Virginia concluded that Robertson diverted his ministry's donations to the Liberian diamond mining operation. Attorney General of Virginia Mark Early blocked any prosecution against Robertson, as the relief supplies were also sent. Presidency. After the official end of the Civil War in 1996, Taylor ran for president in the 1997 general election. He campaigned on the notorious slogan, "He killed my ma, he killed my pa, but I will vote for him." The elections were overseen by the United Nations Peacekeeping Mission, United Nations Observer Mission in Liberia, along with a contingent from the Economic Community of West African States. Taylor Taylor won the election in a landslide, garnering 75% of the vote. Although the election was widely reckoned as free and fair by international observers, Taylor had a huge advantage going into it. He had already taken over the former state radio station and took advantage of its access. Additionally, there was widespread fear in the country that Taylor would resume the war if he lost. During his time in office, Taylor cut the size of the armed forces of Liberia, dismissing 2,400–2,600 former personnel, many of whom were ethnic Kran brought in by former President Doe to give advantage to his people. In its place, Taylor installed the Anti-Terrorist Unit, the Special Operations Division of the Liberian National Police, which he used as his own private army. During his presidency, Taylor was alleged to have been involved directly in the Sierra Leone Civil War. He was accused of aiding the rebel Revolutionary United Front through weapon sales in exchange for blood diamonds. Due to a UN embargo against arms sales to Liberia at the time, these weapons were largely purchased on the black market through arms smugglers such as Victor Bout. Taylor was charged with aiding and abetting rough atrocities against civilians, which left many thousands dead or mutilated, with unknown numbers of people abducted and tortured. He was also accused of assisting the RAF in the recruitment of child soldiers. In addition to aiding the RAF in these acts, Taylor reportedly personally directed RAF operations in Sierra Leone. Taylor obtained spiritual and other advice from the evangelist Hilarion and Paul. As president, he was known for his flamboyant style. Upon being charged by the UN of being a gun runner and diamond smuggler during his presidency, Taylor appeared in all white robes and begged God for forgiveness, while denying the charges. He was reported to have said that Jesus Christ was accused of being a murderer in his time. Rebellion and Indictment. In 1999, a rebellion against Taylor began in northern Liberia, led by a group calling itself Liberians United for Reconciliation and Democracy. This group was frequently accused of atrocities, and is thought to have been backed by the government of neighboring Guinea. This uprising signaled the beginning of the Second Liberian Civil War. By early 2003, LURD had gained control of northern Liberia. That year, a second Ivorian-backed rebel group, Movement for Democracy in Liberia, emerged in southern Liberia and achieved rapid successes. By the summer, Taylor's government controlled only about a third of Liberia, Monrovia and the central part of the country. More than one-third of the total population lived in this area. On the 7th of March 2003, the Special Court for Sierra Leone issued a sealed indictment for Taylor. Earlier that year, Liberian forces had killed Sam Bokere, a leading member of the RAF in Sierra Leone, in a shootout under Taylor's orders. Some have claimed that Taylor ordered Bokere killed in order to prevent the leader from testifying against him at the Scsl. In June 2003, the prosecutor to the special court unsealed the indictment and announced publicly that Taylor was charged with war crimes. The indictment asserted that Taylor created and backed the RAF rebels in Sierra Leone, who were accused of a range of atrocities, including the use of child soldiers. The prosecutor also said that Taylor's administration had harbored members of Al-Qaeda sought in connection with the 1998 bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. The indictment was unsealed during Taylor's official visit to Ghana, where he was participating in peace talks with model and LURD officials, with the backing of South African President Thabo Mbeki and against the urging of Sierra Leone President Ahmed Tejan Kaba. Ghana declined to detain Taylor, who returned to Monrovia. Resignation during Taylor's absence for the peace talks in Ghana. The U.S. government was alleged to have urged Vice President Moses Blah to seize power. Upon his return, Taylor briefly dismissed Blah from his post, only to reinstate him a few days later. In July 2003, LURD initiated a siege of Monrovia, and several bloody battles were fought as Taylor's forces halted rebel attempts to capture the city. The pressure on Taylor increased as U.S. President George W. Bush twice that month stated that Taylor must leave Liberia. On the 9th of July, Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo offered Taylor exile in his country on the condition that Taylor stay out of Liberian politics. Taylor insisted that he would resign. Only a few U.S. peacekeeping troops were deployed to Liberia. Bush publicly called upon Taylor to resign and leave the country in order for any American involvement to be considered. Meanwhile, several African states, in particular the Economic Community of West African States under the leadership of Nigeria, sent troops under the banner of ECOMIL to Liberia. Logistical support was provided by a California company called PAE Government Services Inc., which was given a $10 million contract by the U.S. State Department. On the 6th of August, a 32-member U.S. military assessment team were deployed as a liaison with the ECOWAS troops, landing from a Marine Expeditionary Unit with 3 U.S. amphibious ships waiting off the Liberian coast. On the 10th of August, Taylor appeared on national television to announce that he would resign the following day and hand power to Vice President Blah. He harshly criticized the United States in his farewell address, saying that the Bush administration's insistence that he leave the country would hurt Liberia. On the 11th of August, Taylor resigned, with Blah serving as president until a transitional government was established on the 14th of October. Ghanaian President John Kufuor, South African President Thabo Mbeki, and Mozambican President Joaquim Chissano, all representing African regional councils, were present at his announcement. The U.S. brought Joint Task Force Liberia's amphibious-ready group of 3 warships with 2,300 Marines into view of the coast. Taylor flew to Nigeria, where the Nigerian government provided houses for him and his entourage in Calabar. Exile. In November 2003, the United States Congress passed a bill that included a reward offer of $2 million for Taylor's capture. While the peace agreement had guaranteed Taylor safe exile in Nigeria, it also required that he refrain from influencing Liberian politics. His critics said he disregarded this prohibition. On the 4th of December, Interpol issued a red notice regarding Taylor, suggesting that countries had a duty to arrest him. Taylor was placed on Interpol's most wanted list, declaring him wanted for crimes against humanity and breaches of the 1949 Geneva Convention, and noting that he should be considered dangerous. Nigeria stated it would not submit to Interpol's demands, agreeing to deliver Taylor to Liberia only in the event that the President of Liberia requested his return. On the 17th of March 2006, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the newly elected President of Liberia, submitted an official request to Nigeria for Taylor's extradition. This request was granted on the 25th of March, whereby Nigeria agreed to release Taylor to stand trial in the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Nigeria agreed only to release Taylor and not to extradite him, as no extradition treaty existed between the two countries. Disappearance and arrest. 3 days after Nigeria announced its intent to transfer Taylor to Liberia, the leader disappeared from the seaside villa where he had been living in exile. A week before that, Nigerian authorities had taken the unusual step of allowing local press to accompany census takers into Taylor's Calabar compound. Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo was scheduled to meet with President Bush less than 48 hours after Taylor was reported missing. speculation ensued that Bush would refuse to meet with Obasanjo if Taylor were not apprehended. Less than 12 hours prior to the scheduled meeting between the two heads of state, Taylor was reported apprehended en route to Liberia. On the 29th of March, Taylor tried to cross the border into Cameroon through the border town of Gamboru in northeastern Nigeria. His Range Rover with Nigerian diplomatic plates was stopped by border guards, and Taylor's identity was eventually established. U.S. State Department staff later reported that significant amounts of cash and heroin were found in the vehicle. Upon his arrival at Roberts International Airport in Harbor, Liberia, Taylor was arrested and handcuffed by LNP officers, who were immediately transferred responsibility for the custody of Taylor to the United Nations mission in Liberia. Irish UNMIL soldiers escorted Taylor aboard a UN helicopter to Freetown, Sierra Leone, where he was delivered to the Scsl Trial. The Scsl prosecutor originally indicted Taylor on 3 March 2003 on 17 counts for war crimes and crimes against humanity committed during the conflict in Sierra Leone. On 16 March 2006, a Scsl judge gave leave to amend the indictment against Taylor. Under the amended indictment, Taylor was charged with 11 counts. At Taylor's initial appearance before the court on 3 April 2006, he entered a plea of not guilty. In early June 2006, the decision on whether to hold Taylor's trial in Freetown or in Leidschendam had not yet been made by the new Scsl president, George J. King. King's predecessor had pushed for the trial to be held abroad because of fear that a local trial would be politically destabilizing in an area where Taylor still had influence. The appeals chamber of the special court dismissed a motion by Taylor's defense team, who argued that their client could not get a fair trial there and also wanted the special court to withdraw the request to move the trial to Leidschendam. On 15 June 2006, the British government agreed to jail Taylor in the United Kingdom in the event that he is convicted by the Scsl. This fulfilled the condition laid down by the Dutch government, who had stated they were willing to host the trial but would not jail him if convicted. British Foreign Minister Margaret Beckett stated that new legislation would be required to accommodate this arrangement. While awaiting his extradition to the Netherlands, Taylor was held in a UN jail in Freetown. On 16 June 2006, the United Nations Security Council agreed unanimously to allow Taylor to be sent to Leidschendam for trial on 20 June 2006. Taylor was extradited and flown to Rotterdam Airport in the Netherlands. He was taken into custody and held in the detention center of the International Criminal Court, located in the Scheveningen section of The Hague. The Association for the Legal Defense of Charles G. Taylor was established in June 2006 to assist in his legal defense. When Taylor's trial opened 4 June 2007, Taylor boycotted the proceeding and was not present. Through a letter that was read by his attorney to the court, he justified his absence by alleging that at that moment he was not ensured a fair and impartial trial. On 20 August 2007, Taylor's defense, now led by Courtney Griffiths, obtained a postponement of the trial until 7 January 2008. During the trial, the chief prosecutor alleged that a key insider witness who testified against Taylor went into hiding after being threatened for giving evidence against Taylor. Furthermore, Joseph Zigzag Maza, a former military commander, testified that Charles Taylor celebrated his newfound status during the Civil War by ordering human sacrifice, including the killings of Taylor's opponents and allies that were were perceived to have betrayed Taylor, and by having a pregnant woman buried alive in sand. Maza also accused Taylor of forcing cannibalism on his soldiers in order to terrorize their enemies. In January 2009, the prosecution finished presenting its evidence against Taylor and closed its case on the 27th of February 2009. On the 4th of May 2009, a defense motion for a judgment on acquittal was dismissed, and arguments for Taylor's defense began in July 2009. Taylor testified in his own defense from July through November 2009. The defense rested its case on the 12th of November 2010, with closing arguments set for early February 2011. On the 8th of February 2011, the trial court ruled in a 2-1 decision that it would not accept Taylor's trial summary, as the summary had not been submitted by the January 14th deadline. In response, Taylor and his counsel boycotted the trial and refused an order by the court to begin closing arguments. This boycott came soon after the 2010 leak of American diplomatic cables by WikiLeaks, in which the United States discussed the possibility of extraditing Taylor for prosecution in the United States in the event of his acquittal by the Scsl. Taylor's counsel cited the leaked cable and the court's decision as evidence of an international conspiracy against Taylor. On the 3rd of March, the appeals court of the Scsl overturned the trial court's decision, ruling that as the trial court had not established that Taylor had been counseled by the court and personally indicated his intent to waive his right to a trial summary, Taylor's due process rights would be violated by preventing him from submitting a trial summary. The appeals court ordered the trial court to accept the summary and set a date for the beginning of closing arguments. On the 11th of March, the closing arguments ended and it was announced that the court would begin the process to reach a verdict. The verdict was announced in Leidschendam on the 26th of April 2012. The Scsl unanimously ruled that he was guilty of all 11 counts of aiding and abetting war crimes and crimes against humanity. Taylor was convicted of the following 11 charges. At his trial, Taylor claimed that he was a victim, denied the charges and compared his actions of torture and crimes against humanity to the actions of George W. Bush in the War on Terror. Sentencing hearings commenced on the 3rd of May and were announced on the 30th of May. Taylor was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He was about 64 at the time. His sentence was upheld on appeal. Sierra Leone's government described the sentence as a step forward as justice has been done, though the magnitude of the sentence is not commensurate with the atrocities committed. Taylor appealed against the verdict, but on the 26th of September 2013, Appeals Chamber of the Special Court confirmed his guilt and the penalty of 50 years in prison. On the 15th of October 2013, he was transferred to British custody and began serving his sentence at HM Prison Frankland in County Durham, England. Taylor's attorneys filed a motion to have him transferred to a prison in Rwanda, but in March 2015 the motion was denied and he was ordered to continue serving his sentence in the UK. Family. In 1997, Taylor married Jewel Taylor, with whom he has one son. She filed for divorce in 2005, citing her husband's exile in Nigeria and a difficulty of visiting him due to a UN travel ban on her. The divorce was granted in 2006. Jewel Taylor currently serves as the senior senator from Bong County. Philip Taylor, Taylor's son with Jewel, remained in Liberia following his father's extradition to the Scsl. He was arrested by Liberian police officials on 5 March 2011 and charged with attempted murder in connection with an assault on the son of an immigration officer who had assisted in Charles Taylor's extradition. The mother of the victim claimed that Philip Taylor had sworn vengeance against the immigration officer. He was arrested at Buchanan in Grand Bassa County, allegedly while attempting to cross the border into the Ivory Coast. Taylor has 3 children with his second wife Victoria Addison Taylor. The youngest, Charles, was born in March 2010. In 2014, Victoria was denied a visa to visit her husband while he serves his sentence in the United Kingdom. Taylor also has another son, a U.S. citizen named Charles McArthur Emmanuel, born to his college girlfriend. Emmanuel was arrested in 2006 after entering the United States and was charged with 3 counts, including participation in torture while serving in the anti-terrorist unit in Liberia during his father's presidency. The law that prosecuted Taylor was put in place in 1994, before extraordinary rendition, in an attempt to prevent U.S. citizens from committing acts of torture overseas. To date, this is the only prosecuted case. In October 2008, Emmanuel was convicted on all 3 counts and sentenced to 97 years in prison. In popular culture, Taylor is a prominent character in the 2004 novel The Darling by Russell Banks. The character Andre Baptiste, Sr., for the 2005 film Lord of War is partially based on Taylor. Taylor appears in the 2008 documentary Pray the Devil Back to Hell.